Hello, everyone. Welcome to the third edition of DOIS DevOps India Summit, and we are very happy to host this panel discussion on the leadership and human capital, human asset building, and how does this happen in the industry 4.0 that we are in, which is a combination of a lot of disruptive technology as well as very brand new technology that's emerging within the industry right now. On our panel, we have Al Wagner from Transformational Architect from HCL. We have Charlene Natraj, Global Head, HR Fleet and Strategic Brands, AP Moller Maersk. Naresh Chaudhary, Vice President from Infosys. Biswajit Mohapatra, Executive Director and Global Delivery Leader from IBM. And Yashwant Nanjandappa, Yash heads the Infrastructure and Service Reliability Engineering from Maersk. So welcome panelists. I'm looking forward to a great discussion on this panel right now. So as the team itself for the DevOps India Summit is all about adapting to Industry 4.0, where we have moved out from a 3.0 in a very crucial stage of where we were still formatting and disruptive from the disruptive technology and disruptive revolution that took place to the now. How do you see, and with the 4.0, we mean a lot of technology importance in terms of AI, especially, and blockchain technologies, which we had not heard of. Even currencies are going to be very, very different in this new ways of working. With all the technology that's coming in, how are we looking at human capital to be built? So what do you think as leader, it plays a significant role in building human capital as an asset so that we can have high performing teams in our organization? Al, you are a transformational architect, so it's a lot to do with a combination of process, technology, and people. So I'll start with you on this question.
Okay. So leaders building high performing teams. To me, and I'm going to introduce this other dimension around the unplanned work and the impact of the pandemic and the movement of people to, say, remote work locations from maybe the typical office environment. The best attribute that a leader needs to display with their team is trust. Making sure that they have the technologies that they require, they understand the work that needs to be done and their role in delivering on that work, and then trust in allowing them to execute. The other side of it, though, is the employee also needs to, or the and I don't want to call them an asset, but the human being, they have a responsibility to as well with respect to maintaining skills and embracing these new technologies and getting them, positioning themselves in a place that they are delivering value. So it's to me, it's an exchange of information between the leaders and the people that report to them, trusting that they're going to do the right thing. And through that trust and the demonstration of value, that's how we're going to maintain this human capital within organizations, because technologies are changing so quickly. You know, if I like a situation that Steve Jobs described. If we look back to the MP3 player when the music industry was disrupted, you know, we went from an MP3 player to a smartphone in just a few years. And now we see new technologies coming along all the time. Now, particularly in my role as a transformation advisor and in this industry 4.0, I lean on things like value stream management and understanding how work goes through that pipeline, spanning people, process, and tools, to make sure that we're all on the same page and we're in this together. We're working as a team, not an us versus them. It's the leadership is involved with the teams and working to deliver on the business results that, you know, DevOps is all about, which is the space that I spend a lot of time.
Thank you, Al. Naresh, probably I'll go with you now. Al spoke a lot about trust and the fact that even it's a two-way where employees and the company both work together. You come from Infosys, which is a lot to do with your people may not be with you all the time. It may not be sitting with you in your teams. How do you see a leader playing a role in building that human capital where they're actually accountable to the clients they are working with more than, or I won't say more than, but as equally as they are with you. How do you see in a situation like that?
No, great question, Padma. And I'm just building on what Al sort of started with. I think from the perspective of the role of the leader, right? I mean, it is essentially about showing the people the North Star, helping them to sort of get an understanding of the larger purpose, getting them to understand the larger meaning out of the work that they are doing. And then it really matters less whether you are doing something for a specific customer, you're doing something for your own organization, right? So for me, I think the role of the leader is really to make sure that these things happen in a much more balanced manner, where you're able to actually get your teams to understand what are you really creating, what are you building, what is the impact that it is going to have on sometimes the customers, end user, end customer, sometimes it's the larger society, sometimes you're trying to disrupt and create something completely innovative that's going to change the way we work and approach things. So if the teams can actually be made to understand this, I think that goes a long way in ensuring that you are starting to build a very cohesive team that can actually then sustain that momentum and sort of keep innovating on top of that. So I feel the role of the leader really starts with that. How do you create that purpose? How do you create that North Star sort of understanding for the team? And then, I mean, all of us hire smart people, right? I mean, they can take it from there and they can sort of develop on top of that.
Shalini, I'll go with the same question to you with a different angle. You are a HR leader. So you are like what we call as a horizontal in an organization. So you are responsible for everything that happens to people, but not yet exactly responsible because they have their own leaders as well. So how do you build probably the practices that helps to build that human capital, human asset in an organization?
Yeah, and can I just say, Al and Naresh are dream business leaders for an HR person, because they're talking about two most important things, right? About trust, as well as, how do we come together to build purpose. But let me start by something you said, Padma, the word asset. I come from a logistics industry, and when I interviewed with Maersk 3 years ago, they said it's a very asset heavy organization or industry. And by that, they meant big, giant vessels, giant containers, giant cranes. But what I believe is the true asset is the human being behind these so-called assets. And Maersk has transformed since then to believe that those assets brought home the money, to actually believing now that it's the people behind these so-called assets bringing home the money, bringing home the culture, bringing home a really good brand, right? So then, of course, every company goes through transformation. It's the people at Maersk who've done that happen, who made that happen. So that's a little bit of an asset reference, right? But if I can take what Naresh and Al said and build it a little bit, I personally think everything about building high performance starts with three things. One, self as a leader. What am I doing to develop myself, keep myself engaged, keep myself inspired? Because hundreds of research says that if I am disengaged as a leader, then I'm not going to engage my teams enough. So which means I start with me. Am I engaged? Am I happy with what I'm doing? Do I find the impact and the purpose in what I am doing as a leader? So it starts with the self, and then it moves on to the employee and continues with the purpose and trust we've already spoken about, but also going into how can I, as a leader, remove myself from there. There are times when I become the roadblock as a leader because I'm coming in to say, here's how it needs to be done, and can we do it this way? Instead of that, can I inspire them to bring their best to work every day? Can I remove roadblocks? Can I make myself dispensable so they're able to create, they're able to innovate every day? And then the last thing that the leader can do to influence high performance is also the ecosystem, it's the environment we work in. I believe that there are many times when I think about culture, I think about my leader and how my leader treats me, but also about the ecosystem I'm in. So can I make my culture around me more easy for me to be myself? Can I create an inclusive environment? Can I have a culture which believes in growing along with me and not just in spite of me, right? So I kind of feel like if we can look at it in these three ways, then it can create a high-performing team, but also create human capital in a way that we're building business and it's not the other way around. Padma.
Thank you. Thank you. Makes sense. So we spoke a lot on trust, inspire, motivate. Biswajit, I'll go with you. You're a very strong technology leader. As how do you see the technology and the people coming together in the new version that we are looking at Industry 4.0?
Okay, so I think probably Naresh, Al, and Salini talked about most of the important tenets of Industry 4.0 and how you can build high-performing, self-motivated human capital asset, right? Probably just to add on, as you know, there's a fundamental shift today in the industry, the way work gets done. I strongly feel we as leaders need to really be prepared to change the hardware processes that we have been following for a long time, right? Today, if you really look at the industry dynamics and Industry 4.0 with pandemic and digital shift towards cognitive enterprise, where we are kind of driving culture of agile innovation, we are talking about next gen technologies, whether it's AI, ML, blockchain, IoT, quantum computing, so to say, everything fueled by data, all those are fine. But the very fundamental change that we really need to look at while building a high performing team, it's all about having a customer-centric mindset for your employee. That's the first thing I look at it, right? The second point probably I'll strongly urge is today, the work actually follows the talent, not the other way around, right? So you need to really be cognizant of that fact, right? And all the decision making is extremely democratized today through use of analytics, AI, ML, and other stuff, right? That needs to be the decision maker while you are planning to really focus on building a high performing team. This reminds me one of the greatest HR leaders, basically his name is Paul Dupius, and he has mentioned in his book, which is called E5 Motion, where he talked about to build a self-performing team, you as a leader needs to focus on 5 different E's, right? How exactly you are envisioning to build that team. How you are expressing your team is your second E. Third is how exactly you are exciting your team. How you are expressing your team and enabling your team to reach that end objective so that they're self-motivated and self-directed to deliver. That's probably is more important today when you are taking this transformational journey, so to say.
Thank you. Thank you. Yash, I'll go with you. You also come from a very technology background like infrastructure and SRE. So how do you see human capital being nurtured in an environment which is very technology heavy?
Yeah, thanks. So I think a lot of my peers over here called out on various tenants, right? So one of for us, like from a site reliability or in infrastructure engineering standpoint, Industry 4.0 gives us a lot of opportunities from a technology change perspective. So a lot of old things are getting replaced with new things, be it on the DevOps world or on the cloud first world, the microservices journeys, the APIs coming in. But at the same time, while this change is getting influenced and the momentum across the global economy, it also provides us with equal benefits and challenges. So one of the recent one, I think Al called out, right, the pandemic, how we started to work through working from home, what kind of features were made available for employees or to the teams to be resourceful and as well as take the benefits of working from home. But all of these changes are driven from an external force. So the role of the leader at this point is like they have very little or no control many a times, right? So how does the leader shape up the team? How do they guide the teams? And how do they bring in mindfulness in these forces to ensure that the right decisions and the right structure, the right trust is all built across really matters. So in this way, I think one of the key tenets I would like to call out along with others that were called out is the unlearning and the learning fact. So be it on the technology and as well as these external forces which are influencing the technology world, how fast you can unlearn, how efficiently you can learn back the new stuff. And then by doing so, how do you influence this change? And how do you bring in this learning in by observing the external factors, the internal changes, the orientation of these changes, deciding what next to do or how best we have to do, and as well as making progress rather than looking out for perfection, making progress at every junction matters. So that's how I see from an leader influencing the human capital in the Industry 4.0.
Yeah, thank you, Yash. You brought out a very important point, and probably I'll pick up the thread from there. A lot of the time, especially from the pandemic, what we have learned is we have been in a responding mode. We have responded to the situation that has come put across to us as we evolved with this pandemic. But a lot of organizations have now announced that probably the way we are working now, the remote ways of working and working from home, is going to be the new normal for some time and maybe for a longer time. And some organizations have gone ahead to say that maybe this is how we will be working forever, because we see a lot of value in doing this. So probably I'll start this question with you, Shalini, with this new ways of working. How do you see as a HR? Because what foundation you lay in this space is going to be the way it's going to be adopted by the rest of the organization. So how do you see in the new ways of working with work from home, remote ways, human capital still being able to be nurtured and managed and built as effectively as we were doing pre-COVID times?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And we have spoken a little bit about the pandemic. So let me start from where I am looking at this, right? There is a, right now, at least in most of us, including me, I've worked from home for 1.5 years now. And I feel like at least I am more productive and more engaged. I'm not too sure if everybody can say that, but every once in a while, I crave to go back to office. I crave to be amongst my peers, have a conversation, make eye contact. And I feel like it's really important to build stronger relationships with people and teams, that we do have a hybrid model. So most companies are now going into not fully remote, not fully in the office, but probably a hybrid where most people get an option to work from home every once in a while, but you do come into office to meet and collaborate. So in keeping that as a background, one of the questions most people ask is, can you be as efficient as an organization, as a team, like you were when you were fully in the office? And the proof is in the last 1.5 years that most of us have been efficient, but it also needed the organization and the leaders to operate differently. And we learned as we went along, right? But some of the things that has helped, and Al mentioned it a little bit already, is we have to start treating employees as adults. When we try to throw the rule book at them all the time, and we try to make it so black and white, and every guideline and everything that we try to articulate is when we have a problem. So can we treat them as adults and give them the power, the empowerment to be themselves and do what makes sense to them, while having to set the guardrails, while having to give them the tools, but also ensuring that there are deliverables, there are purpose, there are KPIs that are already laid out, so they know what is expected out of them, but they get to deliver it the way they want to deliver it. So I believe one of the things, the most important, is to treat them as adult and give them the empowerment to choose how they want to operate, however, with a little bit more guidelines on what the KPIs are. That's one of the most important things. The second one is, as a leader, and I'm now talking about myself, there are times when I didn't know enough about what my employee was going through, because, you know, they're in the office, they're in front of you for 6 hours, they go away home and you don't know what's happening. And now we have visibility into their homes, into their pets, into what's happening with their mother-in-laws. It makes you as a leader a whole lot more empathetic, a whole lot more sympathetic to, or sensitive to the other side of who they are, not just the employee in front of you, but the whole human being, which then means that if leaders can rise up above the deliverables and become more human, more empathetic, then that delivers a whole lot more empathetic leadership to them, and then hence they become more motivated, right? So I'll end this by saying, one, can it be done? Yes. Can we effectively run organizations with a hybrid model? Yes. What does that need is a leader being a lot more clear, a lot more communication, a lot more transparency, but a lot more empathy. And using technology to the fullest is something that will work.
Yeah. Thank you. I like the word empathy a lot, and I'm glad you brought it out. I'll probably now go to Biswajit here again. How do you see that empathy and probably the heavy technology that we need to deploy for this to work really well? How do you see these going well together to help human capital to be built and managed in the new ways?
Yep. So I think a very important point, I think Padma, you kind of brought up on, there are two important facets to it basically, right? One is, of course, you need technology, right? And many companies, I'm sure Naresh and others will also agree with me, many services companies, so to say, has brought up what they call as virtual delivery model or dynamic delivery model to serve to their customers after the pandemic has struck and everything has gone online, right? So what is the tenets of this virtual delivery model? If you really look at, it's basically building a strong foundation, maybe leveraging cloud, leveraging pervasive technologies and platforms, security and privacy, which is an important concern today, right? That's the foundation layer, right? Then the second layer, what I call is as personal trust and accountability, right? It's all about how do you really remotely engage with your people, right? How do you really follow a global talent standards, right? To build up a human capital which is self-directed, and also maybe giving them an opportunity to deal with ubiquitous knowledge management, right? And then the third layer is all about shifting towards virtual collaboration. So many virtual collaboration platforms today are available that can be leveraged to deliver better to our clients, right? That's the technology facet of it, right? So you have a solution in place, but how do you really go beyond those technology solutions and make your people connected to you when everything is remote, right? And where the line between your personal and professional way of doing things really blurred, right? How do you keep them engaged, right? So there's a rise of engagement platform, so to say, today, basically, where you engage with employees, right? How can you future skill people? How can you give them a personalized dashboard so that they know that, okay, this is their youth, this is their way of doing things, this is what they're learning, this is the way they're certified, and so that they stay relevant and they make themselves future skilled, right? So that's one part of it. The other part that Shalini talked about, very important again, basically, right? You definitely need to go beyond the work and stay connected with them at a very personal level, right? If I talk about some of the points that we are doing in our company, just to highlight some of the points, maybe you have a event called Light, Camera, and Action, where people come to office beyond the work, they show what other skills they have. Maybe somebody's dancing, somebody's talking about singing a vocal song, right? Somebody's doing a storytelling, right? Or maybe something called Talent Telescope, where they come and show different kind of talents they have. That's the way you can stay connected with the people and give them that motivation, which probably they are missing on a real virtual world today, right? The second point, what I probably would like to brought up on is basically your HR processes, right? And I'm sure Shalini and other people who are practicing HR practitioners will agree with me. You have to really strengthen your HR processes in the current context to make it more data-driven visualization way of doing things, basically, right? The traditional way is not going to really work today, right? And in the same time, to attract talents, you have to have mechanism by which you can have a distributed model as well as a flex model to attract the best talent to your organization and get them connected, basically, right? And again, employee connectivity is very, very critical, right? Can you leverage various analytic techniques to improve the connectivity between the people? Maybe that's one thing probably we all need to think about. Yeah.
Perfect. Makes sense, Biswajit. I like the blending of technology and the people, because they have to go hand in hand. Yes, maybe I'll come back to you here again, especially given you're in infrastructure and SRE, which is a lot to do with being with the people, very connected to drive the work. How do you see having this in a remote workplace and still be able to be that people leader for your teams to be effective, to manage that human, build and manage that human asset?
It's interesting, right? So do we have a choice? I mean, we have to work from home now, right? I mean, but at the same time, the good part is that things are coming back to shape. So hopefully, but at the same time, right? Like as you rightly called out, coming from an SRE background, where we are the custodians of production environment 24/7, right? So a lot of times our people are on call, responding to issues, and at the same, so I think I have to just pick up what Shalini was calling out on the previous one, which is the empathy factor. So we have gone through situations where an individual is on call, there is an incident, and they are not reachable. Whereas the immediate reaction or from a leader or from a manager or even from a peer is that they are on call, they are not responding. But then when you sit back and think through, and at the same time where you are now able to connect with that person later on, we get to know what they were going through, right? And then you start to imagine yourself or thinking to yourself that, okay, whatever I thought through about the situation was completely wrong. So that empathy really matters. But at the same time, given the fact that we are all remotely working and we have people, especially in the 24/7 arena, where there are working from home, working from remote places, they're natives, all this while they were in urban centers, now they have gone out of the cities. Technology challenges have creeped up, communication challenges have creeped up. But at the same time, I also see that this is an opportunity for leaders to think out of the box and also look into the new ways of working and collaborating. Bishwajit called out some of the IBM practices they do, right? But at the same time, not even taking into the organization level, but as a leader, one thing what we have started to inculcate, including myself, right, like is more about listening skills, right? Because we don't get to see the body language. It's either on the phone, on the Zoom calls, on the team calls. A lot of times that technology runs into an issue, like I think you are not able to see me because I'm frequently getting an alert saying that my network bandwidth is low. So those challenges creep up and we do not know what is happening on the other end. There is no body language involved. So the more we get connected, the more we listen. I think that shapes up how you build that trust and how you deliver during remote working period.
Thanks, Yash. I think that's again good points you brought out. Naresh, I'll go with you where Yash left around being there for your people. Probably listening is something that an organization like Infosys has been doing, because you don't get to see your employees as much as you want to see, probably because your team members are all scattered around your accounts. That is always happening. But how do you see it happening differently now in the new ways of working?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely right. Padma, it just got amplified a year and a half ago. So I tell a lot of our customers, partners that from working out of 60 or 80 offices, we suddenly moved to a scenario where we are working out of 200,000 offices because everybody was working from home and each of them were like setting up an home office. And the scale and the complexities of that, right? In the initial first few weeks were quite daunting, but then I think like every other organization, we went through that very rapidly and got around it. And I think now it is sort of a normal thing, right? It's sort of the new normal in that sense. So I think 2-3 things that come to my mind. One, as leaders, are we a lot more understanding about some of the things that Yash was talking about, right? What people are going through, because in some ways work and profession and all of that has intruded into people's homes. So are we actually a lot more understanding about what people are going through, the issues, etc.? Second, what I also see is every manager, every leader is now required to bring in an element of what I call coaching. Because people need that additional support. People need that additional, sometimes a pat on the back, sometimes somebody who can actually open up and sort of share a little bit more, guide them, right? So some sort of coaching, mentoring sort of, starts to play a very, very critical role. And the third important element is the leader's ability now, probably a lot more now than in the past when we were in the office, to be able to remove those hurdles, act as a catalyst where you are actually sort of unleashing a lot more energy to the team, helping people stay motivated, take out any small glitches, issues that the team may face. So I think these become very important because of the sheer nature of the spread of this and the scale that has come in because of remote working.
Thank you, Naresh. So I'll end this question with you, Al. You are a consulting organization, right? Typically, and a lot of these things are happening, especially the coaching, mentoring. You not only do coaching, mentoring for your clients, but within the teams also. So how do you see it happening differently now in the consulting practice that you are in?
Sorry, is that directed at myself?
Yeah.
Okay. It's so I really want to go back to the word empathy, because it's this whole remote ways of working was not a planned activity. It was kind of thrust upon us very, very quickly, and it disrupted a lot of people, and people reacted differently. So as a consultant, as I work as a team lead with others in my group, which is worldwide, I've been working remote home office for 20 plus years. So this was not new to me, but the empathy and understanding the situations, you have to listen. There's been so many good comments made. You need to listen for the problem. You need to nurture. You need to guide. You need to remove the inhibitors that are blocking people by leveraging your experiences. and it's those types of things like Zoom calls, reading body language, and just through coaching, seeing if body language tells us an awful lot. Then the other things we do is, leverage technology. HCL Software has a product that for value stream mapping and management, but that allows us to look at workload by individual. And, if maybe that individual is not one who's going to come out and say, I'm depressed, or I'm struggling, or, I've got a family member that's ill right now, or it's those kinds of signs that the leaders now need to pick up on, or the consultants need to pick up on, and help that individual get through what may be challenging them. So, it's listening, it's nurturing, it's guiding, it's demonstrating, it's assisting. There's just so many things that have come out of how we needed to change the office environment of, and if I look at the stand-up meeting in an Agile, what am I going to do today? What did I do yesterday? What's in my way? What's slowing me down? We can use technology to try to get a vision into that, but we need to listen and have empathy for the person on the other end of that phone to understand what's really going on and then help them through it.
Thank you, Al. Thank you. I think you kind of summarized the whole question that we had. The next question, I have 3 small questions within that question, and probably that will help our audience to know you better, actually, as the leaders that you come from. So the question is, what is your definition of leadership, having discussed a lot about in the first 2 questions, and who is your favorite leader and why? So definition of leadership, who is your favorite leader and why? Al, do you want to go, as you are already here with us? Screen.
Definition of a leader. So personally, I'm not an individual who likes micromanagement. I like to be told what the expectations are, and I like to be empowered to make the decisions that I need to make to get the job done. And with that level of trust, which I talked about earlier. So a leader is there to listen, is there to guide, is there to mentor, is there to instruct, is sometimes there to manage, but it's empowering the people to do what you've asked them to do. And when they get stuck, getting that blocker out of the way, removing the inhibitors that are impeding people's ability to deliver on your expectations. Who are my favorite leaders? Right now, my immediate manager and the manager that from my previous organizations, both of them are very well-respected thought leaders. They listened. They, helped have an open discussion with a high level of trust and confidence. And they presented themselves in a way that I could aspire to be at sometimes. And I'm not going to give names because, but those are the things I look for is somebody who motivates me, somebody who trusts me, somebody who corrects me when I've gone astray, but does it in a professional manner, and somebody who gives me the freedom to do what they've asked me to do because they know I will deliver. And some of it falls back on myself. A leader is going to give you that liberty or that freedom to deliver if you deliver value. If you're one that misses deadlines or delivers substandard product, it's going to take a while to build up some trust. So, again, it's a two-way street, but the people those that have empathy for my situation and are trying to help me grow my career, those are my leader favorites.
Thank you. Biswajit, do you want to take a stab at this question?
Okay.
Your definition of leadership and your favorite leaders.
Yeah. So I think there are 2 parts of the question. So if I talk about my definition of leadership, probably I'll keep it short. And if I put it into one sentence, I'll say it's all about creating signature experience around you. That's my definition of leadership. Anything and everything you do, look at how you can create a signature experience in that stuff that you are doing, basically, right? Some of the things, right? The first thing that I practice to become a successful leader, the first thing I strongly believe in is be vulnerable all the time, right? Second, I think some of my fellow panelists already talked about, be ready to learn, unlearn, and relearn all the time, basically, right? Because the industry is changing so fast with a pace and with a scale. Unless you adapt to those changing priorities of business and technology, you are not going to be a very successful leader. Point number 2. Point number 3, I strongly believe, do not be afraid to disrupt. Be always prepared to disrupt, basically, right? And fourth thing, how can you bring in all those trust, personal accountability, and inclusivity that I already talked about earlier? That's the fourth thing I always focus on as a leader. That was the easy part, but the difficult part is whom do you really look up to as a leader, basically, right? It's a very difficult question for me, because generally I get inspired by the ideas and actions of the people, not by the persons, right? So it's very difficult to tell me who is one person whom I really look up to, right? So I have multiple leaders whose ideas and actions has inspired me, starting from Mahatma Gandhi to APJ Abul Kalam to Steve Jobs. So many names, right, I can take, right? And I strongly agree with ex-CEO of HCL, Mr. Vineet Nair, when he said, so leadership is all about being passionate about an idea, right? So, and I'm a strong believer of that, right? So, and I strongly feel leadership is a right that you earn from the people around you with whom you can connect, because you have a strong purpose, because you have a strong passion.
Thank you. Shalini, I'll probably go with you. What do you want to say on this?
Yeah, and great points already covered. So I'll actually change this a little bit. For me, it's been a state of mind and not so much the title, because where I sit, I see a lot of people changing because they got a title of a leader, and sometimes, unfortunately, they feel like they have arrived, and their empathy goes out of the window, and there are happy days, and then there are not so happy days. And humility is something that I really believe is really, really important as a leader, along with everything else Biswajit as well as Al said. And of course, Naresh and Yash will add to that, right? So I believe that it's a state of mind. It isn't that somebody has to tell you that you're a leader for you to become one. You're always a leader, because irrespective of the title, you're leading an idea, you're leading a thought. So I really feel like that's what it is. I'll like Biswajit said, there every day I have a different inspiration, different motivation, and then a person who's behind these things. So then I'm inspired by that. Today, my favorite leader is Simon Sinek. I've been tracking him on Instagram and all of these amazing things he's been saying. One of the things he said, which I want to quote and I live by every day, is let us be the leaders we wish we had. Right, like Al said, he is a great leader now, and I wish I can be the leader that I'm hoping my leader can be for me. And then, so the one thing that connects to that is, every time somebody asks me, what is the culture of Maersk, let's assume, the first thing I think of is, how does my leader treat me? Because that's what in my head is the culture. If he treats me well, I'm going to think that this culture is great. If he treats me not so well, then I'm going to blame that on the culture as well as on the leader, right? So I kind of feel like it's a combination of many of these things. And I'll end by something that Simon said. The role of a leader is not to come up with these amazing ideas every day. The role of the leader is actually to create an environment where some of these great ideas come on their own and can just be nurtured on their own, because they don't have to be the smartest person in the room. They just have to know who to put in that room when smart ideas come up. So that's my idea of leadership for today.
Thank you. I think, yeah, it's so contextual, this whole concept. Like, I think Steve Jobs said that, like kind of what you said. If I hire smart people and tell them what to do, then I don't need them. I hire smart people because they can tell me what I need to do as a leader. So I think I'll go there with Naresh probably here. Yeah, Infosys has had some leaders that every day a lot of people look up to. So what do you have to say, Naresh here?
Yeah, Padma, and again, I'm adding to what the panelists have said before. For me, leadership is about action and not a specific position or title like Shalini mentioned. So I think that's something that is very important for everyone to understand, that it's really about the stuff that you do, right? And not really about the title or the tag that you carry. And most importantly, as a leader, are we actually creating a new approach which is actually energizing the team, making it a lot more effective? And is it allowing the team to then unleash its full passion, full potential to create something bigger, and that larger purpose that the team can start to see. I think that's really leadership for me. When it comes to my sort of favorite leaders that I look up to, in fact, right now it is two of them. Satya Nadella at Microsoft. I think he has done amazing work over the past few years in sort of transforming a large organization, a successful one at that, into something new, and the approach, the way of working, etc., becoming more collaborative, more embracing, more partner driven, all of that. I think that was an amazing transformation led by him from the front. Closer home, like you mentioned, at Infosys, it's been Nandan Nilekani. I had the chance to work closely with him. His ability to create a vision and then enthuse everybody around that vision is just amazing. And also the humility of accepting that something has gone wrong, apologizing for it in public, in front of everybody, and then moving on, saying, let's fix it and move forward. I think that's a great quality as a leader. So these are two of my current favorite leaders.
Oh, yeah, thanks. I so much resonate with Satya Nadella. I have been reading so much about his book also. I recently reread it, hit refresh. And yeah, the amazing transformation for a large organization like Microsoft, which probably people thought there is no transformation required for an organization like that. Yeah. Yes, I'll probably end this question with you. What's your thoughts on leadership and your favorite leader?
I think great call outs, right? Great thoughts. And I've not read that book. So thanks for sharing. So I just made a note to go through it. So I'll take two extracts, right? Like I think Shalini shared about leaders being arrived, and I'm here. And at the same time, some of the questions that we were discussing earlier about change in working style, remote working, and and what is happening in the technology or the industry 4.0. So it reminds me and quote connecting these two dots, and it reminds me and quote from Martin Luther King, which went by something like, the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. So I think putting the given mission or self-interest or ego is leadership for me, right? So we go through leadership or leaders in every walks of life, be it at the family, at the nation level, societal level, at the company level, etc. So there is always some mission involved for everyone to achieve, and there are people who look up to them. And at the same time, leaders can't escape challenge or controversy. So every decision is put across and looked into what could have been changed or what really happened at that moment, and how they respond stands out. And this also means that everyone can be a leader. I think Shalini also hit that point, right? Like one simply does not need any kind of title to call themselves self-leaders. With that said, I think there are many leaders that I look upon to, but one I admire the most is my manager in my earlier company. He was someone who built the company from ground up with the founder, served the company for nearly 33 years, did almost all types of role: internal, external facing, customer facing, product management, project manager, decision maker, etc. And in doing so, he started from nothing. I mean, it was a startup at like 80s, 85, and what we talk about startup today, he did all of those at that duration. And he played the second fiddle, never thought about getting into the CEO space or getting into a chairman space. And in doing so, he built great CRM products, global teams, multi-billion-dollar business. And one key extract of that going journey was that he did everything with the highest possible standards of ethics and integrity, right? So that's the mark of leadership for me. And in doing so, there were a lot of ups and downs in the journey, and he achieved it with long-term vision for 30 plus years, as I called out. So for me, what it taught was putting the mission about everything matters, and it's a mark of leadership, and probably will end it up like you just do your karma and rest will follow.
Thank you, Yash. Thank you. I think this can be a topic by itself. Actually, a lot can be spoken, and but we'll have to start and stop somewhere. So I'll probably start this question with you, Naresh, here. Where do you see the future of the role of a leader now that we have kind of had several definitions, but not aligning, all of them aligning to some common themes? How do you see it evolving and redefining in the next 3 to 5 years? Where do we see this? New ways of working, new technology. So the new role of a leader here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there is going to be some element of continuity, right? Because certain things are timeless, right? Because whether it is the value system, you as a leader, how do you demonstrate integrity? How do you lead from the front, lead by example? Your ability to create a vision, motivate, energize your people, developing talent, right? Being sort of customer first in your approach, helping your team to sort of maintain that edge, etc., etc. I think these are timeless things, and they will continue to be around the dimensions of a leader as we define, characterize them. But I think there is a change also, right? So with that continuity, there is going to be a change. Now, change with respect to, for example, you will have to be thinking a lot more sort of, inclusive and diverse, right? How do you sort of bring in diversity a lot more than you think about in the past, for example? Second, for example, you would actually have to look at the ability to forge partnerships. And in fact, I always tell my team that, we should all learn how to work with rivals at times, right? And which was not required in the past, but I think in the future it will be required a lot more, that you come together for a shared purpose, shared objective, and then maybe part ways, right? So how do you do that, and how do you as a leader allow your team to sort of break those barriers, go on and do those things very effectively? Then sharing, right? I think a lot of the times we think of leaders as that one single person standing out there out of the crowd. I think a lot of times in the future, leadership is going to be something of a shared thing, where multiple people will come together to create that leadership and then drive the teams ahead. So for me, I think these are some of the key elements that will change in the future. And we will all have to sort of, come together and adapt to some of these changes. And some of them will be easy to transition into. Some of them will be difficult, and will probably create some element of discomfort.
Absolutely. I like that. I think the coalition of people coming together to lead, not just one person or one designated person coming towards. I think I like that futuristic looking. I do completely believe in that, Naresh. I agree with you. Yes, do you want to take a stab on what do you think the future of leadership role is going to look like in 3 to 5 years?
I think being from the technology background, right? So we kind of get a close view, or maybe interest on what's happening in the industry and how it relates to the leadership or to the human side. So today we are in a stage where humans do not decide whether there is a cancer in a patient. It's probably an AI mix of ML models analyzing tens of thousands of photographs, blood samples, other data points to arrive at whether the patient is having cancer or not, right? So we are arriving at that stage. Everywhere technology will be in shape. So which means that there is a lot of implications in the types of activity that humans get involved, or as leaders we get involved. Critical thinking plays a critical role, the creativity, the domain knowledge, unlearning and learning, as I shared earlier, the social skills as well, because everything is changing. And the important thing, again, from an SRE standpoint, is that we are again in an area where there is a change happening, where the generation 2K is arriving at the workforce. So you have mix of people who have decades of experience, and then there are people who have been into the industry, love social media, and if they have to express themselves, probably it will not be an one-on-one, it will probably be on a social media and Twitter post or something of that sort. So how do you engage them? How do you build relationships? How do you make technology savvy groups going forward? Because technology is going to rule it, and that's something that the leaders will have to shape up. And in doing so, it becomes important that we leaders are also willing and be agile, and how processes change, or what kind of obstacles that we run into, so that the transformation can take place.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah, Biswajit, do you want to take a stab at this question of role of leaders?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the way I look at it, the future of leadership, I think the top-down leadership is going to be the thing of the past, right? More and more in coming days, leadership is going to be more democratized, and decision making, as I said, is going to be more distributed, right? I see the emerging behavior of leadership probably around 4 different mindsets, so to say, right? So I call it as the first mindset as producer mindset, right? Where you have to focus on customer intimacy, you have to focus on analytics, data-driven decision making, execution, and outcome. So you as a leader need to have the producer mindset. Second mindset is all about investor mindset, where you have to pursue a higher passion than the shareholder values. You need to be dedicated towards sustainable growth, right? The third mindset is all about what I call as connector mindset, right? I think some of the panelists already talked about this, right? How do you really get the diverse teams, customers, ecosystem partners? And I think Naresh talked about rivals, right? So I call it as competition, right? Competition and cooperation, all of them together to drive a shared purpose, right? That's the third mindset. And the fourth mindset is all about you as a person. You need to possess an explorer mindset. What does that mean? You need to be completely open for change. You need to be flexible. You need to be nimble. And you also to be ready for driving the culture of agile innovation. I think a fair balance of all these 4 will really make a very successful leader in coming days.
Yeah, that's very correct. I mean, I'm seeing already a few of this, right? Like democratizing and distributed ownership and distributed decision making. These are already coming in because we really do not have enough time for one person to do all of this. So I think that the time has already coming in, not 3 to years, 5 years, but kind of almost here now. Yeah, and do you want to just take this question? How do you see the role of leaders in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, the 3 to 5 years part frightens me because it'd be so hard to predict what that looks like. But if I was to guess, I would see a flattening of organizations where leaders of the future are able to collaborate effectively across different divisions of an organization and bring that everybody together. You talked about the democratic side to leadership, where certain tasks are distributed out to perhaps certain areas of the business or certain groups within the business, but a leader is going to have to bring all of those people together, not in a management type of way, but as a facilitator, as a therapist, as a consultant way to get everybody in alignment. Then the other side of it is, we talked a lot about the human capital and the human beings. The leaders also need to have some sense of ownership or responsibility around the culture or the environment that these human beings are working in. There's a movement in the United States right now, and I think it's spreading, but as we move to remote working, people are starting to leave, say, some of the higher cost of living areas in the United States to lower cost areas. A business response right now, some of them are readjusting salaries based on where the person resides as opposed to the value that they deliver. That's a demotivator. So the leadership in the next 3 to 5 years, they're going to see new challenges. But right now, it's make sure that one, you're working across the organization, and 2, providing a positive environment where the assets, the human capital that you have, you're not worrying about retaining them. It's a positive work environment. You want to keep them. You want to provide that environment for them to grow and continue to exist. And I think that's what's going to make the leader successful in the next few years. 3 to 5 years out, no idea, because who knows what's coming. But for the immediate future, and that's all we can really see right now, is that's my thoughts.
Absolutely, Al. I mean, like we said, a few things are already here, staring into our eyes. How do we want to do it now? Not 3 to 5 years. And some things are like kind of more of responding, not reacting when we hit the time frame, and then we are all getting ready for it. So it's a fine balance between the two. Shalini, I'll ask you to go next and probably end this question with you here.
Sure. Some amazing things that are said, and the benefit of going last is I can probably look at one or two things that we could think about. And here is what I'm thinking. For the leader to be everything, my co-panelists have already said, there are also things that influences the leader or the organization or the whole industry. And when I think about, like Al said, maybe not 3 to 5 years, but in the next couple of years, the biggest influence is going to be the pandemic. The pandemic has influenced how we live, how we believe in things, how we operate technology, everything. So which means some of the things that has changed right now will continue. Like Naresh said, continuation is what happens. So let me think about a few things that has happened, which will have a huge influence on organizations' culture as well as how the leaders operate. Let me start my own example of a few things that I've done. I've worked from a beach, some remote beach, nobody there. I sat there and worked for an entire month. What that made me realize is I don't have to be in an office to actually go and work out of somewhere, which means there'll be more and more people who will want the freedom to just be anywhere and still operate. And the leaders have to be able to be okay with it and not say that I want you in front of me, but also believe that good things happen. And then, but it might lead to a sabbatical. People might come back and say, hey, I want to take a break for 3 months and climb a mountain, because they have realized that life could change any minute, and then there is a need for us to take care of ourselves. So wellness becomes really, really important. So a leader is heavily influenced by people coming in and saying, hey, you know what, I will park the promotion for a year and I want to take a break right now and go and do something else. And those are some things that we've never had conversations more so in India and be okay about it, but it will happen. So wellness takes over, sabbaticals can happen. People might want to work from anywhere they want. And the most important is also gig economy, right? And we haven't spoken so much about it, but people might not want to work 8 hours, 365 days. They might want to work only for 3 months, 6 months. And Naresh, I'm sure you're seeing a lot of that already, where people want to work for a short time, not be associated with one brand all the time, move away, take a break and come back and do it. And I believe, Padma, to your question, right, and to everything that has been said, that the environment gets influenced so much by our learnings, our ability to take care of ourselves, our health, the family, everything else. And then that comes to work every day with us. So can a leader identify and say, hey, this is not the same person who left me before the pandemic, and I need to be able to create an environment that makes him or her successful now. And that will continue for the next few years, 3 to 5 years, whatever. So I'll stop here by saying that what has worked for us until now as leaders might not work for us, but some will. So listening, empathy, coaching is something that's going to help us be the leaders of the future and support the working environment that's going to be very, very different from what we have seen for many years now.
Absolutely. Can't agree more on this. Definitely, because people's priorities are changing with the way things have happened, and a lot of people impacted at a very personal level have seen that life is not all about working and promotions and having a good bank balance, but having a good life at the end of the day that I can look back. So priorities have changed. I think these priorities are going to influence the leaders also a lot. And overall, every one of us, right, who is building a team, who is building an organization, who is building a functional group, all of us are going to be doing things very differently, and few things which we probably did not do. And I think Yash brought out this, and all of us also, all of you also brought out this learning, unlearning, relearning, and probably let go of some things because they no more help us. Maybe kind of moving a little more in the space of philosophical, spiritual spaces where let go. It's okay. It's okay not to have it at this point in time. I think we are going to get into a space like that. So thank you very much. I think this topic can go for a week actually for a discussion. So 1 hour is a lot of injustice to the whole topic as such, and to the knowledge you bring to the table. I think asking you to speak on this for 2 to 3 minutes is highly absurd from someone like me asking you to take a stab on it for 2 to 3 minutes. But in the interest of time, and I'm sure there will be our audience who will probably want to get in touch with you, ask you more questions after the panel, and probably want to learn more from you. And that's what this panel is intended to do. Showcase, and so that people can actually continue to learn from you. Maybe you become the leaders that they are looking for and keep in touch with you, get mentored, get coached. That's what we are looking up to from this panel. So thank you very much for this time. I personally enjoyed this session, learning so much. I made a few points, and probably I'm going to shamelessly use of some of them also. I don't know if I'm going to give any copyrights to you, but I'll definitely acknowledge you guys saying that I learned it from you. Thank you so much for this wonderful 1 hour of learning. Thank you. And some of you have taken out time little late in the evening, and for Al, maybe very early in the morning. Thank you for your time and sharing your knowledge and experience with us. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Padma.
everyone.
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.